Hello and welcome. This is our quick CSS beginner's guide, so you have to have no sort of prerequisites. I would recommend watching the video done on HTML, which I go through and explain step by step how we got to this. I'm just going to use the same video to run through quick CSS, how it's done, and how we link it all up basically. So if we just come down here and we'll go live so I can bring up our nice trusty website. It's looking brilliant, isn't it? So to get started with CSS, what do we need? Well, there's a few ways that we can implement CSS into our standard HTML page. One way we could do it is we could have like a body tag, and then we could do a style tag, and then inside of the style tag we would write out all of our CSS essentially. Or we can do inline styling, so we'd just attach a style attribute to this, and we would write inside here our CSS. The third way we can do it is to come into our head and do a link. Let's see if it has. No, it's not coming up with that. Yeah, we can do a link tag, and then we just put in our source to our CSS file. So those ways are style tag and inline styling, which would all be done in the HTML file, or we can add in our own external CSS file. We're going to go through each of those different ways now, and there's sort of pros and cons, if you will. Right, so the first way we're going to style our page is we're going to use, well, I'm just going to show a quick example of inline styling. So as I said before, you can write your style attribute, and then inside here you'll write your CSS. So if we just say background color, and nice and handy in the IDE here, it will come up with a few options and auto formats it, so we'll actually change that to blue. If we save that and we come to our thing, you can see that the whole of that list item, so that style is applying to that list item, turns blue, because that's what we assigned. There are other things we can also assign, so we could do like height, height colon, we're going to go 200 pixels, and then a semicolon to escape. And then if we save that and we come back, you see it's now got a large height on it. So that's how inline styling is done. The other way to style is internal styling. So this would be using the style tags I mentioned. The tags for style go inside of the head, so we just write style, and then everything inside of these tags is the styling, and we just write it out like simple CSS. So in CSS you do like your tag, so if you just write body, it will refer to this body here. If I do a pound symbol and then write 7 services like that. This will refer to the services. This pound symbol means something with an ID attribute that corresponds to this. So if we say ID service, we'll just have to change that, but it becomes service. And then in here we can do a background color. What should we go for? We'll go for a nice cornflower blue. And then we can also do like a text align center. So all of the text should be sort of centralized. So if we come down here, yeah, all the text is centralized and the whole element it was attached to has now turned to that cornflower blue. Looks like a nice color, to be honest. Another thing we can do is a dot, and this refers to a class. So if we had contact like this, and then what we'll remember to do is come down to wherever we want it. So we could have it on here, and we write class equals contact, and we'll go up, and in here we'll write height, which we'll have the height as, we'll have the height as 300 pixels, make it nice and obvious. And then we come down here, you can see now the contact is large, 300 pixels from top to bottom. And that's how we do internal styling. Now the other thing we can do is external styling. So if we come into here and we say, we'll just call it index style. Oh, we'll call it styles.css. So this is a CSS format. Come in here and oh, I spelled it wrong. There we go. And this is a CSS format now, so we can get our body element, or we could get all elements that are called section. So this is a section element, this is a div element, this is the h1 element. If we write like that, then it will capture every section element. Or if we wrote p, it'd get every p element. If we're div, it'd get every div element. If same as before, if I write contact, it will get dot contact, it will get the all styles inside that will apply to any element with a class of contact or a class of something, whatever I wrote. When it comes to ID, so like services, this is unique because you can, IDs have to be unique in the HTML. So we couldn't have service, an ID of service on this, and then also make it an ID of service on this. It has to be completely unique. So the standard protocol for styling is generally to use classes. That's the sort of industry standard. So a class can be used multiple times. So if we put a class on, we'll put a class just after the class in here on the A tag, and we'll say, we'll call this class link. We'll just copy that for now, save the file, copy that for now, and put link, so it will get every element that is assigned the class of link. Now the standard way to format CSS styles like this is generally with the dash symbol, so background and then the background color. And then we can write blue or black. We can also use hex codes. So this hex code will be black, this one's white, this one's like a grey. I think there's something like CC3300, which is like an orangey colour. And we can use RGB or RGBA. RGB is the red, green, blue standard colouring spectrum, so it goes from 0 to 255. So if 0, 0, 0, red 0, green 0, blue 0, that would be black. And then the A is alpha, so the opacity, so if we had 0.1, it'd be basically see-through. If we had 1, it would be completely opaque, and if we had 0, then that means it'd be completely see-through, so it wouldn't be present at all. So we'll just go with like a 0.4, and then to close it off you put a semicolon. This then tells the CSS that's the end of that style. I might want to write another style now, so we could do like a height 200 pixels. There are other sort of height attributes. We could do VW, which is VH, which is viewport height. We could do a percent, so that means 100% is the height will be the full height of its parent element. So if its parent element was 200 pixels, that would also be 200 pixels. If the height of that element took up the full HTML, then be 100% of that. Or you could do 50%, so it'd be half of its parent element. Could do to rem or to m. The difference between rem and m is think of it like this: the standard browser font size is 16 pixels, so 1 rem is 16 pixels, 2 rem is 32 pixels, and it always works off the standard browser height. You can alter that height and it will alter your rem, but it's generally 16 if you don't alter it. M, on the other hand, follows the font size of its parent element. So if the parent element had a font height of 8 pixels, then 2M would be 16 pixels, 1M would be 8 pixels, and 0.5M would be 4 pixels. Whereas if the parent element was a font size of 8 pixels, then 1 rem would still be 16 pixels. That's the difference between them. So we'll just put this as auto. So auto means it'll just fill out whatever's necessary. It just takes a default. Or you could just use default, which would be exactly the same. So we could do service with the hashtag, which defines it as anything with an ID of service. So we could use background, color, we'll go with a nice aqua. Now, if I write section here, and I put background color, like that. Let's see what happens. Oh, we forgot to link it. Being too busy going over our style and forgot to link it. So we come in and we do our link tag. So in the link we put our rel, and then we use style sheet. So it's just telling it it's a style sheet. Type is text/CSS, and source is, we're going to say style.css. Me not thinking it's href, not there we go. Now it's all applied. Sorry about that. See, we can all make mistakes. So you can see it applies to each section, that purple violet. But notice I've got a section and then I've got service. So why is this section still remaining aqua? Well, if I take that out and I put that there, does it remain the same? Yes. This is because if you assign an ID, it takes higher priority over anything else. So the highest priority would be like an inline style on your element with whatever you want it. Then it's the ID, class, section, element. So the amount of specificity you put on something is the amount of priority that a CSS file gives it. So if I'm specifically saying this unique ID, then that will take priority over this. If I say this specific class, it will take priority. But ID is more specific than class. So if you had something like, we'll just put the class of link on there, and you can see nothing changes. The background color is still aqua. It's because the ID one is taking priority over the class. That's why most people generally just use classes as their standard point of reference. They'll only use like IDs for maybe some JavaScript stuff or anchor tags, as I showed in the HTML one. Now, you can do pretty much most things with CSS, but let's just go and do like a quick basic standard styling on our nav. So we can select it for now just by using nav. That will select the nav element, so it corresponds to the tag of the HTML. And notice it doesn't have like a dot or a hash or anything before it. So this will attach itself to the nav element. What should we do? We'll do a height of 70 pixels. We'll say its width is 50%. We'll give it a background color of crimson. Doesn't have to look pretty when I'm doing a design course. And then if we save that, we can see how it takes effect. You see it's only taking up 50% of the element. If we just quickly come back, We'll change that to 20, save, and it goes down. So that's how percentages work. Also, if I like reduce the browser width, that also goes down as well, because that element's getting smaller in size because it's only taking up 100% of the width. So if the width is smaller, then that's smaller. And then what we could do is a position. These are more advanced things, but it's just sort of something you can now go look at because you've seen me do it. And now, what does this do? Well, it moves everything up. There's some other people that have done videos on positioning, but there's a few types of positioning, and position just relates to where is it in the document. So, as I said before, the skeleton here from the HTML is how it's generally formatted. But we can override that with the CSS. That's the nice thing. So if I want this nav to be down here at the bottom, I could do that. I could override it with the CSS. That's why it's nice and useful and fun. It can take things out of the standard skeleton in the sort of how they appear on the screen, but it won't affect the overall structure of the HTML, which is useful to note. If we just take that out, we'll keep it the standard HTML flow. It goes back now. We can do some other cool things. So we could do a transform. We'll just do a scale. We can do 2. What does that do? Makes it twice as big. It can also mess up if you don't do other styling. But there's other fun properties. Again, you can go to the W3 Schools website and they have a huge resource of CSS properties, which are very useful to go through. As you use them more and more, you'll learn what they are and you won't need to go look up the documentation like I'm not at the moment with this. So I could just do a what else could we do? We could do a transform, and then we could do a rotate 90 degrees, and it's rotated the element 90 degrees, or minus 80 degrees. Oh, there we go. It's rotated it the opposite way. So if you rotate with a positive integer, it will go clockwise. If you rotate with a negative integer, it will go anti-clockwise. So the standard would be the text is here. It's went anti-clockwise due to the minus, so now it's down here. If we'd done a plus, then the text would be sort of here somewhere. Plus, just a positive. So, oh, yeah. There, you get my point. The text is up here now. So, started here, went here, and the bar goes this angle. And then there's also a property color. And you're probably thinking, but you've got a background color. Well, the background color assigns to the background, whereas the color assigns to the children elements within inside of it. Oh, yeah, there we go. Now you see the dots have went to white, but the text has not. It's because we've got a nav and we're saying the color is white, which is applying to the children elements. Now, sometimes this will filter down to children within children, but because we got like list items and anchor tags, they have like sort of a standard higher specificity in their default styling. So to override that, we could just do a color white, and if we want to get rid of the underlining on it, we can do text decoration none. And while we're at it, we can take off the can use list style none on the unordered list, and it will get rid of the dots. And now, because we've assigned the color and a text decoration of none, so the text is decorated in no way, it removes the underlining. We still get our pointer when we hover over, so that's the standard default of an anchor tag. I could also make a cursor show up on these if I wanted to, but that wouldn't be really useful. And we can do all sorts of fun stuff like that with CSS. So for CSS, just remember a dot indicates if it's a class, a hashtag represents if it's the ID, and then you just write what the ID is. Writing nothing in front of it would refer to the element tag itself, or all element tags, so like section, nav, ul, and a does. And that's how you'd write out your standard CSS, so it's nice and useful to note. That's really all there is to it. You just write up simple like name value key pairs. So once you've assigned what it is you're targeting, you just open up these curly brackets, and inside you put what it is you want to, what sort of property you want to attach. So your background color is the property, and then you assign the value to it. And yeah, remember to finish off with a semicolon, so you can then write your next items like I did down here. And this colon goes in between them to separate the name, the property, and the value. So I hope that clears anything up. Remember to leave comments, let me know what you think. And if you like the video, like it, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get more updates when I upload new content. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.